I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of several books, no other than Mr. Keenan Booker. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Keenan, and can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Keenan Booker. I'm author of 10 books. The last books that I've completed were the Encyclopedia on the Alchemy of Women, but today we're going to be talking about one of my most popular series, which is Kicked Out of Heaven, The Untold History of the White Races, circa 700 to 1700 AD.
So before we go on to talk about your latest book, Mr. Keenan, what initial steps should you take to begin the process of writing a book?
Well, you should have read a lot of books before you begin to write a book. So I've been reading books since born. Obviously, a lot of us have, but usually after high school, people drop off from, or high school or college, people drop off from reading books. And I continued and I went into a lot of deep realms. And you should always have a long history of reading before writing.
What important is outlining before diving into writing the first draft?
How important it is to outline before you start writing your first draft is very important. And the reason being is because you want to have a focus and a control of the literature that you're dealing with, or what you plan to explain during the course of you writing. And drawing the outline gives you the boundaries of where to go and where not to go. Okay. As they say in the book industry, a lot of people can start a book, but a lot of people can't finish the book. And if you have your outline drawn out thoroughly, you should know your starting point, your your incline, your maximum point, and then your decline. Is how it works with every book.
Very well said, Mr. Keenan. What techniques can help in developing compelling, believable characters?
Oh well, I only write nonfiction, so when it comes to characters, I don't really have to develop any characters or anything when you're dealing with philosophy or theology or history or explanations of things that occurred in the past. There's already when people purchase the material, they already have their mind set on the time period or the situation that as it is explained in the synopsis or in the title.
How does one choose the right setting for the story and why this is important?
Well, there's the right setting. There's a million settings when you're talking about a book, because books have been getting written since around 1400s when we want to talk about mass production. So when you say a setting, especially in today's mind, um, it's already there. The setting should be known within the title, as it was stated in my title, the untold history of the white races from circa 700 to 1700 AD. So you already know from there you're dealing with old Europe, you're dealing with a span of 1,000 years, and this is history that isn't told, that isn't publicized, and that is the setting. So with me going into history, I already understand that there are certain pockets that aren't being told, because the majority of information that's given to, or that's allowed for the public, or I shouldn't say allowed, I should say popularized, is based off of television and media. So people rely on television and media before they go into literature, unless they have a certain niche that they're already attracted to, right? So you have to go for something that is exciting. And when it comes to the medieval, everybody is already loaded up with the medieval, whether that be stories of Cinderella, Snow White, Three Little Piggies, whether that be Super Mario Brothers, whether that be Game of Thrones, whether that be vampire stories or werewolf stories. All of those have their origins in medieval Europe. So the setting is already there. It's already prepared. You should know, you know what you're getting when you read this material.
What are effective ways to build a plot that keeps readers engaged from beginning to end?
Well, in all my books, you want to keep a little comedy there, but the root line of Hollywood or media that keeps people excited is sex and violence. So whether you want to decorate that and however you want to create, paint it, um, is going to be based upon those two elements by majority rule. It's either going to be sex and violence or comedy, and that's what keeps people attached to it.
Very well said, Mr. Keenan. How can authors ensure their book's theme is clearly communicated and impactful?
Clearly communicated and impactful. Is going to be short language. The majority of the literature that's exposed to the world or that's popularized, or like for instance, the New York Times is written at a seventh grade reading level. My books are a little bit more advanced past that, but that's the simplistic level for the standard of the human race is a seventh grade reading level when we're referring to English.
Yes, indeed. So, what role does research play in enhancing authenticity of a book?
Like I said, I write nonfiction books, so all my books are based upon research. I don't have to deal too much in the realm of developing characters and things of that nature because everything I do is 100% factual. And in order to guarantee a fact, you want to uh, find the same information written by at least 3 to 5 different sources that do not know each other, okay, or are not in sync or not in combination or in colleague status with each other, shall I say. And that will, and then there's going to be sprinkles of that evidence inside society. So for instance, the story Snow White is a folklore story of old Europe, but people don't realize that in between the time period of the 1300s and the 1700s, there was a little space called the Little Ice Age, where in old Europe it was documented to be negative 50 below zero. And it went up and down, but for a very long time it stayed around this temperature, and it developed folkloric stories that we know today. Like I stated, the Snow White. Okay, so research is very important, and you want to be as detailed as possible, especially dealing with historical information. You want to try to give your reader a view of the common day man and what they were living, every single day with the things that they encountered and everything that they went through in order to really give them a time machine to that time period. And that's basically what all my books are.
Very well said, Mr. Keenan. So, how can writers like you be effectively manage a pacing to maintain reader interest throughout the book?
Well, reading interest throughout the book is the first thing. You have to have a very grabbing first chapter. So within the first chapter of the Kicked Out of Heaven series, I go over 1,000 years of natural disasters. There are a lot of odd natural disasters that occurred in old Europe. For instance, they said there was 15-inch hailstones that dropped. There was time periods where locusts would blacken out the sun. There was a time period in France where there was no sun for 3 years, and a lot of famines were created. A lot of people died, and there were very harsh living conditions. and these facts come directly from the king's chroniclers of those time periods. So, as I stated, sex and violence is one thing, but to be astounded or to be surprised by living conditions that are not known to us in the modern time period, it would definitely keep a person excited to keep moving through the literature. So you always want to keep shock factors going, or quote what we call plot twists. Okay, moving through the literature that keeps a person attached to it.
Well done, Mr. Keenan. But before we go on, I want to shout out my ranking tops according to my Apple chart in the last 30 days, because in Bhutan, I got number 6 on the Apple chart, Taiwan at 34, Jamaica at 54, Cameroon at 67, Thailand 97, South Africa at 115, Cambodia at 139, and a lot more. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Mr. Keenan. So, Mr. Keenan, what strategies can help in overcoming writer's block during the book writing process?
Stay focused. You want to have a strong love life, and you want to, if you come down to a writer's block, put the pen down and go live a little. And something in public or something, while you're out and about will reignite the flame to get you back writing. You'll see something or experience something that'll get you back focused.
Interesting facts about writer's block. So, Mr. Keenan, how can authors incorporate feedback from better readers or writing groups effectively?
Incorporating feedback will obviously be for your next book, as you're not really considered an author until you have more than one book. A lot of people get into the industry and think that they're going to get a a get rich quick scheme by just writing one book. So you definitely have to keep on going and keep on going within inside the book realm to be respected as an author. Okay, so yeah, to keep people engaged and attached is uh, to make sure that your reader sees and feels the literature that they're writing. I mean, that they're reading when they go out there into the world. When they put the book down, you want to have the world uh, show up in synchronicity with your book to their life individually, and then they'll understand the power of the literature, and you'll be able to get more sales on your next book.
Very well said, Mr. Keenan. So, which one of your books we gonna talk about today?
You can scroll down on the page a little bit. We're going to be talking about the Kicked Out of Heaven, the Untold History of the White Races, circa 700 1700 AD, which is a
Okay,
3-volume series.
this
You can
one,
scroll down on that page a little bit; it'll show up right
Kick
there.
Out of Heaven. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Kick Out of Heaven. Kick Out of Heaven. The untold history of the white races. How did you crafted it?
How did I craft it?
Yes.
Well, these books are actually written like a museum. So, I went after a lot of the material, as much material I could that was written during that time. Like I stated, the majority of the information that comes from the first chapter talking about the natural disasters actually comes directly from the King's Chroniclers of that time period. Okay. So I had to go through over about 100 and 150 books to compose the 3-volume series that you see here. And then there was a lot of pictures and a lot of paintings that were available, and there's over 1,000 pictures inside the 3-volume series.
So, Mr. Keenan, Kick Out of Heaven. What behind the title of your book?
What's behind the title? Well, that title came from the conditions that the people of old Europe were living in. They didn't understand or couldn't comprehend if it was the devil, I mean, God that was punishing them, or if the devil was sent by God to punish them, or it was just the devil directly playing tricks on them during the course of their living in those conditions, whether it be weather conditions or the criminal activities and the executioner. And there's over 150 pages in there discussing the torture chambers and the executioners and the criminals. That's in volume one. In volume two, there's over about 300 pages dedicated to the plague and a lot of hardcore experiences that were going on with many different plagues throughout the whole entire continent of Europe from around the time of 1347 all the way up to the 1700s.
Interesting facts, Mr. Keenan. So, Kick Out of Heaven. What do you think the best highlight?
The best highlight out of the whole three series, Ugh, there's a lot of highlights. So, like I said, the things that would be really interesting to us from what we don't know about old Europe and what Europeans were doing before they left Europe would be the activities of the executioner and the criminals and the types of crimes that the criminals were committing. And then another section would be the uh the transcripts, the court transcripts from the werewolf court trials and the witch court trials, and why women were being taken to the stake as witches during that time. There's a lot of details in the material pertaining to those subjects. You can scroll
Ki-
down a little bit more so both books can show up on the screen.
Yes, so Kick Out of Heaven. What are your struggles in writing with?
What were my struggles with writing those three volumes?
Yes.
Um, the struggles was, I guess, the spiritual understanding that I had to go through. Um, the the understanding of Catholicism, which is the third volume right there. You're showing it on the screen right there, and yeah, I mean, because a lot of the information was available and it was untapped, and you could feel that nobody else was there. So it wasn't really a struggle for me. The information was very dark, especially in volume two. If you read the entirety of volume two, you have to read volume three because it's a very dark zone of a lot of the stuff that was going on in old Europe. And we see that today in our movies that's developed by Hollywood. Horror movies and things of that nature all stem from medieval history.
So, Mr. Keenan, Kick Out of Heaven cannot stand alone as you go read. You need to read one by one so that you can concept all the story.
Right. Well, it's written in a format where you can read it from cover to cover, which rarely people do. I didn't really expect for people to do that, but it is written in the format to read from cover to cover. And then there's another layer of reading where you could just read it by spot reading, and spot reading is pertaining to each subject. So there's over, I'm close to say there's over about 100 different subjects throughout all three volumes of different activity that was going on and the psychoanalytical review of the behavior that was being committed during the medieval times. So you could spot read it by section. And then the third layer of reading it is by reference material or just going through and reading it by pictures, because there's a lot of pictures, and if a picture catches your attention, you can read that little section about what the picture is about and why the picture is in that area, and you'll definitely be educated about a lot of the details of what was going on in medieval Europe.
Mr. Keenan, what are the key consideration when you writing the book, when you want to revise it and editing the draft to improve the clarity and coherence?
Well, like I said, I had to read over 150 books in order to write it because it's a compilation material. And then to when there's actually I think five forms of editing. You're supposed to read it, and then you go through it like that, and then you have to read it out loud in order to find other nooks and crannies that you want to fix, and then sentencing structure, and also your where you got your periods or where you got your commas. You need to focus on that line, and then also your formatting is the last but not least, and making sure everything is in the pagination and the pictures and everything fits within an inch of the borders of the pages, and that should be about it.
Congratulations for producing these three volumes, Mr. Keenan. But before we go on, I'm inviting you to please visit our official website of our podcast, Food 101, www.food101.ca. It's a website that helps you to create a delicious food. And plus, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our fourth season, with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about polenta and ossobuco. So please do listen. Food 101, our book, and plus one more. Our books are out, not only one, but 13 volumes, people. Food 101, Volume 1 Basics until 13 is only the books that you need how to create a delicious food. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Mr. Keenan, what are the benefits and challenges of self publishing versus traditional publishing?
Um, you're in a land of freedom, and you can move at your own pace, and you get things done a lot. That is definitely the benefits of self-publishing. Um, Also, your pay comes directly to you. You don't have to deal with a bunch of negotiations and the way a publishing house may want your website or may want your literature to be edified underneath their principality. And even though that's good, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong against that, it's just time consuming. Um, Dealing with other people, So when you're self-published, you can be in your own realm and move at your own pace.
Then, what will be your opinion? How can authors effectively market their book to reach their target audience?
Well, that's going to be social media, and I advise that you already have an audience before you even write a book, as that's how I started. I had an audience online before I even started writing a book. So when you write your book, you already have people standing in line to purchase it. Okay. And that's the best way to go about it. And you'll bleed from there. Word of mouth is still the best form of marketing today. So you definitely want to attack that zone, and make sure that you write some exciting material that people can share with others. When it comes to nonfiction or memoirs, autobiographies, 60% of it is going to be self help. So people always want to assist others. So if you write material that is based in that area, it will always spread.
So, Mr. Keenan, what legal considerations should authors be aware of when publishing their work?
Legal considerations: have your bibliography together. Don't plagiarize any material. I haven't plagiarized anything. I have a bibliography, even though a lot of the when I say a compilation book, so these books are actually excerpts from a multitude of a lot of different other books. I wanted you to get the information directly from the horse's mouth, but at the same time, I put it all in the bibliography of where all that information can be found at. So I didn't put myself as the author of material that wasn't mine. And I put, and since my books are in their own style, I definitely put a directory in the introduction on how to read the book, and you can tell the difference in between what I wrote and what other authors wrote.
How would you handle criticism and reviews of your work?
I mean, there's nothing you can really handle when it comes to criticism. People just put up their comments, and however they feel is however they feel. You know,
Definitely.
yeah,
For sure, you cannot please anybody or you cannot please everybody.
right.
So, Mr. Keenan, what is your inspiring word for those aspiring writers out there?
Stay focused. There's a lot of things, at the same time, you do have to live life and take care of your kids, take care of your wife, or whatever your personal situation may be. So there may be a lot of things that may interrupt your focus. Just stay focused.
Yes, stay focused, people, and stop procrastinating. If you have the passion of writing, go for it. Because who knows, you're one of the best in the making, like Mr. Keenan Booker. So, Mr. Keenan, if you summarize the Kick Out of Heaven Volume 1, what is it?
The summary is going to be a lot of hardcore details about what was going on during the time period, especially when it comes to, like I said, 1,000 years of natural disasters, and then you're going to go into other details about the environment, like how the environment was structured, how they went about their plumbing system, trash system, things of that nature, and then it goes into the executioners and the criminals. Okay, and then after that we're going to go into some details about how they dressed, what type of food they ate, uh, customs pertaining to marriage rituals, and things of that nature. And then we're going to go into how the women felt and the way that babies were delivered, and how children were reared, and then also how women felt about the way they were being viewed by the men and how society conducted with them. That's volume one.
Let's go to Volume 2, Kick Out of Heaven, not Volume 2.
Okay, volume two is talking about alcoholism. That's the first thing. That's the first subject. And then after alcoholism, which was very heavy in old Europe, we go into different forms of insanity, lead poisoning, and other things that incorporated hallucinations like ergot. And then after that, we go into a couple of different diseases before we go into the plague. So that's the sweating sickness, forms of medical practices that assisted with those diseases, and also the insanity, the asylums. Okay, and then after that, we go into different forms of mania, which would be the dancing mania. And where there was a time period for about 300 and 400 years, people would just come out of nowhere and just start dancing, and they wouldn't stop until their legs broke or until they fell over and died. And then the Black Death, which was the big plague that occurred in 1347. And that took out anywhere from 25 million to 100 million people throughout all the entirety of Europe, which brought the images that we know today of death, which is the skeleton in the black cloak with the scythe. Okay, but the images of death during that's not how it started out. And there's a description of all of that activity inside the book. And then we go into a lot of different magic systems that came up after that, or maybe even before that, as we could see magic went all the way back down to ancient Egypt. But old Europe had a lot of different magic systems that we know about today because of cartoons. So magic mirrors and crystal balls and things of that nature. And then we go into what a real witch was and why witches were taken to the stake. And there's a lot of details there of there actually the details are so dark I don't even really want to explain them right now. So but there was a lot of different necromancers and supposedly um the undead that would come out of the grave, and there's pictures of cages that are over graves inside the literature. There's also information about ghost armies and werewolves, and multiple cases of vampires as well. Okay, that's all in volume two.
Yes, interesting Volume 2. And of course, Kick Out of Heaven Volume 3.
Volume three is talking about the details of medieval Catholicism and what was going on during um, a very hardcore space of the development of the Catholic Church, and then also the Inquisition. And there's also a lot of explanations of saints, as there's over 5,000 to 10,000 different types of different saints, and all the saints have their own specific stories, and they all have their own specific miracles that they've committed. So there's also incorruptible saints. These are saints that were usually found 100 to 200 years, maybe even 300 years after their death, and their body was still intact, and now their bodies are in glass cases in cathedrals all across the planet, and people still pray to them to this day and ask for certain miracles. Each saint has a dedication towards the human life of which they represent, which would be, for instance, you have Saint Benedict of Saint Benedict the Moor, who represents the African American people. You also have Saint Isidore of Seville, who stands over the entirety of the internet or the written word or encyclopedias. Okay, so there's a lot of different saints that represent a lot of different things, and you want to use that energy dedicated towards whatever you're developing, and all of that's explained inside the book. And then the other half of it is a lot of different pictures and paintings that I found that were very interesting during the medieval times.
Well done, Mr. Keenan, and congratulations for those Kick Out of Heaven volumes. Please do continue. Is this volumes by volumes, or it will end on volume 3?
No, it's done. That series is closed. I'll never go back down that road again. So it's one, two, and three, and you can find the material at kickedoutofheaven.com. I know that you're an international show, so the shipping and handling was going to be pretty pricey if you decide to purchase. There's over 1,000 pictures inside the 3-volume series, and all the pictures are colored. You know, if you buy it directly from Amazon, they won't be. But if you go to kickedoutofheaven.com, they will be.
Okay, Mr. Keenan, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Okay, well, you could go to, as he's, Mr. Lucas here is on my website, KeenanBooker.com, where I do have my material and other sources, but you can also go to StarGatePublishing.com, where all my books are also available. And to get the 3-volume series of the medieval, go to kickedoutofheaven.com, and it's there available for $50 right now. I'm having a sale. So it's cheap, it's affordable, and it's a lot more cheaper than you'll be able to get it anywhere else on the internet. And we have to understand that this material that is so detailed and collegiate that it is referenced and used by pontifical universities, Jesuit schools, military private research universities all across the planet. So that's not just Europeans, but also in Africa, China, Japan, Thailand, Philippines, Australia. Everybody has encountered this material on the academia collegiate level. Okay. So basically, it's a cheat sheet if you want to get around Berkeley, if you want to get around Oxford and Cambridge and understand really what you're dealing with, you have to understand European culture. And this is a composite of European culture before they left Europe.
Well done, Mr. Keenan, and please do support Mr. Keenan because if you support him, more books to come. So,
Right.
Mr. Keenan, thank you for your time.
All right, then. Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.